everyone and welcome to this week's Sam Says. I'm Sam from the FPL Family and we're going to be having a look at Game Week 26. Well, the second part of Game Week 26, there are still 2 games to go in this game week, which feels like it's already gone on forever. But we're going to have a look at the weekend's action from Game Week 26. Think about what happened and think about what that means for our fantasy teams moving forward, particularly when we think that Game Week 28 now, that blank game week, is fast approaching. All right, so let's start today, Sam says, with one of the teams that does blank in Game Week 28, Aston Villa 2, Spurs 3. Really interesting a game of football to watch, this one. End to end for a lot of the game, and both sides seem to forget that they were supposed to defend a lot of this during a lot of this match. Goals from Engels, Alderweireld and 2 from Son, as well as an own goal from Alderweireld, assist from El Ghazi, Grealish, Dyer and Sanchez, a penalty save from Reina, of course the penalty miss from Son. But Son, because of his 2 goals, even with that penalty miss, still getting the 3 bonus points, Reina with 2 and Grealish with 1. That now means that in terms of Son, he has FPL returns in his last 3 matches in the Premier League, as well as, of course, 4 attacking returns in 4 now. So really impressive haul of points from him with 13. But actually, you know, when we look at why Son got those 13 points, maybe he could be considered a little bit lucky actually in this game. Obviously missed the penalty and then capitalised on the rebound from that. Capitalised very, very late on a defensive error from Engels, who just missed the ball and allowed Son through on goal. So actually, you know, we could have been looking at a very different situation for Son owners had he missed that penalty, not scored the rebound, and had that defensive error not happened. So the 3 bonus points in many ways could be considered a bit lucky, but from an FPL point of view, it's 13 lovely points for his owners, and it comes off the back of 2 other FPL returns in game weeks 24 and 25. So if you are a Son owner, looking really nice. And of course, with Spurs not blanking in game week 28, that's a good opportunity for owners of Son to use him to their advantage. The Son then, of course, playing up top alongside the likes of Steven Bergwijn, Lucas Moura and Dele Alli in that Spurs attack in Harry Kane's absence. He has been the guy that's been up top. And from an FPL point of view, that makes him a really nice asset for us, particularly now as we know that he's on penalties and isn't afraid to kind of follow those penalties in if he does miss them, just in case. In terms of the rest of the Spurs attack then, Bergwijn was unlucky not to have got the assist on that penalty, as he would have done if Son had put away that first or the original penalty. He played really well, really up to speed with the pace of the Premier League already. Some nice trickery from him as well during the course of the game. Seems to have already built a nice camaraderie and a nice rapport with the rest of that Spurs team. At 7.5 million, I think he's a really nice FPL asset. The underlying stats look really nice as well. So, you know, we could have ended up with a situation here where he'd scored on his debut and then got an assist for the penalty in his second Premier League game for Spurs. So I think he is definitely one to watch, as of course is Dele Alli. Now, Dele Alli was either incredibly unlucky or incredibly wasteful, depending upon how you look at that game. Should have had a penalty, should have had a hat-trick in that first half against Aston Villa this weekend. Really unlucky not to get an assist during the second half. There should have been FPL points for him, but yet again it's another blank. As a Dele Alli owner myself, he is one that actually, because of the blank game weeks that we have coming up, and because his form has been there, I am unwilling to take him out, even though, you know, there are potentially other assets at Spurs that we could be going to who are more consistently scoring points like Son. But I do think that the opportunities are coming for Dele Alli. Playing in that preferred number 10 position just behind Son, and with Bergwijn and Moura out on each wing, is looking like a really nice attack for Spurs. So Dele Alli is definitely one for me that would be a hold if you do already own him. I think if you're looking for a way into the Spurs attack, obviously Son is the obvious choice, but in the different price brackets, depending upon what you can afford, Lucas Moura, he offers a good alternative, but more impressively, I think Dele Alli or Steven Bergwijn in that Spurs attack. From an Aston Villa attacking point of view then, El Ghazi now has 2 attacking returns in his last 3 at Villa Park. He looked really good in this game, and actually I think from a Villa point of view, their attack was really promising. Grealish, obviously, still the heartbeat of that side. He was unlucky not to score himself a little bit. Maybe if he was a little bit greedier, actually. He often looked for the pass to one of his teammates rather than taking it on himself. And I think there were opportunities in that game where if I owned him in FPL, I'd have been kind of, take it yourself, Jack. But he was really promising in that game, and the relationship that he's building up with Samatta looks really promising. Now, were it not for the blank in game week 28 and the fact that actually the fixtures are really tough, so they have Southampton next, then obviously the blank that I've talked about in game week 28, followed by games against Leicester and Chelsea. It's a really tough run of fixtures for them at a time where the likes of Leicester and Chelsea need to be continuing to win games in order for that kind of Champions League spot to be guaranteed, at a time where the likes of Spurs and Manchester United and Arsenal are pushing on and trying to kind of gain back the land that they'd lost over the rest of the season, or in the earlier part of the season. So it's going to be a tough few fixtures for Aston Villa, but Samatta, Jack Grealish and El Ghazi all looking really strong. Now, having said that these are going to be tough matches, Chelsea haven't kept a clean sheet in a while. Leicester kept their first clean sheet in like 9 games this weekend. So there are opportunities to score goals there. And so from an Aston Villa attacking point of view, I don't know that I would necessarily sell them unless you can't afford to bench them in game week 28. But after game week 28 is blank, then that might be a good opportunity to bring in the likes of Grealish, because obviously at some stage he will be having a double game week to make up for the fact that this one has been missed in 28. So there's definitely opportunities there for them moving forward. And obviously with their league position, they need to start winning games and scoring goals. And so for me, Aston Villa are a hold. Let's see how we are after the blank in game week 28, and then I'll be looking to potentially reinforce my side with an Aston Villa attacker ready for their double game week that they'll have at some stage, and also ready for that kind of final push to the end of the season when they need to score goals and win those points in order to avoid relegation. From a defensive point of view, with the exception of Reina, who saved the penalty, and Toby Alderweireld, who eventually scored a goal for Spurs, there wasn't much to shout about in terms of the defences. Engels came in for Aston Villa to replace Mings, who was ill. And although he did manage to score a goal himself, he was ultimately responsible for both of those Son goals, giving away the penalty and then messing up at the back and allowing Son in the final stages of the match for his second goal. Alderweireld also, like Engels, had a mixed afternoon, scored the own goal and then scored a goal at the other end, having had a week where, as he openly admitted in his post-match interview, obviously he'd had a baby on Valentine's Day, had flown 8 hours to rejoin up with the squad on Saturday night, having not had a lot of sleep. Well, in fact, I think he said he'd had no sleep because of the baby's birth and then the flight over to be back with his teammates for this game on the weekend. So very much a mixed afternoon, but it does seem to be the case for Spurs right now that they either can defend well or they can attack well. We're not yet seeing that in unison from them. So that's something that they need to work on moving forward if they're to push themselves into those Champions League spots. Right, so let's take a look at the members area stats. Matt Targett, the maps show that he continues to find himself in advanced positions for Aston Villa. He still does look like a promising option, but as we've already mentioned, that blank is really off-putting. So maybe on the back end of that game week 28 blank, he might be a possible option. Son dominated in terms of goal threat in this game with 7 shots in the box, 3 big chances and 6 shots on target. Grealish was top for key passes and also the big chances created. And Bergwijn and Moura level top for Spurs in terms of those chances created. So good results for the attacking returns in this game, the attacking players, not so great if you own one of the defensive assets. Alright, another side then that blanks in game week 28 is Arsenal. They won this game 4-0 versus Newcastle in a result that we kind of didn't necessarily see coming. Newcastle have been good, or getting a lot better anyway defensively, and we've all been talking about getting on those cheap Newcastle defenders for their nice run that they have after this game. And Arsenal haven't kept a clean sheet in a while and haven't looked that solid defensively, particularly with key absences at the back, of course. But attacking wise, really came into their own this game week. Goals from Aubameyang, Pepe, Lacazette and Ozil. There's 2 assists from Pepe, 1 from Saka and another from Lacazette. 3 bonus points this week. I'm going to Pepe, with Aubameyang getting 2 and Lacazette getting 1. So what do we do about the Arsenal assets given that they have a blank in 28? So I think a lot of our issues with Arsenal ahead of this blank game week in 28 is that their assets are really expensive. And so in order for us to be able to kind of bench them at a time where we probably own at least 1 or 2 Man City assets, most people have a Sheffield United defender of some kind. And then there's the obvious choices that we talked about from Aston Villa earlier with the likes of Grealish. So it'd be very hard to bench them all. And with the Arsenal assets the way that they are in terms of financial expenditure and the amount of the budget that they take up, they're a bit more of a challenge. Now in this game, we saw Pepe suddenly kind of sticking his hand up in the air and saying, I am an FPL asset and don't ignore me. Now he's only at the moment owned by 2.4% of the game, so huge in the way of being a differential. And in terms of what that means for his owners in this game week, on the back of a 17-point haul, it's a phenomenal return, particularly when we consider that he was benched in game week 25. Back into the starting lineup this week, registers a goal, 2 assists, all 3 bonus points in a 17-point haul. That's madness. Particularly as actually in the second half he looked okay. Much like Arsenal generally, they were just okay in the first half, which was actually dominated by Newcastle. But that second half, Arsenal really came into their own, and they were like the Arsenal that we're used to seeing seasons gone by. Really fluid attacking play from them, and it really is kind of making us as FPL managers, or it really is for me anyway, making me stand up and think, Arsenal assets, maybe actually moving forward after this blank in 28, they might be nice options. Aubameyang got his 15th league goal of the season in this game, so it's not like he's on bad form, but I think because Arsenal haven't been so solid defensively, and because they haven't necessarily been where we would expect them to be in the league, and with the changes in manager and all of the kind of uncertainty at Arsenal, he still isn't that highly owned in terms of where he should be for somebody that's got 15 goals already so far this season. I also think that one of the things that puts us off owning Arsenal attackers is the lack of certainty as to who's going to play up top for them in the games that we have coming up. So there's some really nice fixtures coming up for Arsenal after the blank game week, but who is Arteta going to give the nod to? So Lacazette and Martinelli were both benched at the start of game week 26. Nketiah comes on for his first start since coming back from his loan at Leeds, and played for 84 minutes. So actually, that adds a whole nother dimension to who's going to start for Arsenal. Lacazette obviously then comes on, scores, gets an assist, and gets some bonus points from the game as well. So it's really difficult to know who Arteta's going to pick moving forward. Aubameyang obviously starting out on the left again this week, so we've suddenly, having had a situation where it was looking like, are we going to see Arteta start Aubameyang and Lacazette together? Now it's, well, are we going to see Aubameyang and Lacazette? Are we going to see Nketiah? Are we going to see Martinelli? So it's difficult, I think, from an Arsenal point of view to know who he's going to play, particularly in that those forward positions, and that does make it a bit of a challenge in terms of picking FPL assets from the Arsenal strike force. Pepe, as I've mentioned already, standing up to be counted in terms of the midfield and putting himself out there as a potential option, and obviously Ozil also with a goal this week. So all of them kind of chipping in. Now it's whether that can continue going through game week 27 and out the other side of the blank in 28. From a Newcastle point of view then, they were arguably the better side in the first half. They controlled large spells of their game, and it was only in the second half when they kind of dropped off the pace that Arsenal really kind of came into their own in that game, and eventually obviously ended up completely dominating the match. For those FPL managers that bought in a Newcastle defender ahead of game week 26, like myself, I bought in Lascelles ahead of that game week, not to play in game week 26, and I benched him this week because I didn't necessarily see a clean sheet for Newcastle away at Arsenal. But they do offer great value for money ahead of a really nice run of fixtures from game week 27 onwards. And I think if you've already bought one in, or if you're thinking about it and this game week has put you off, you shouldn't necessarily be discouraged. Newcastle did a fantastic job in that first half. But they also were missing a number of personnel, and it was an away game, and it's an away game against one of the better attacking sides in the league, so not necessarily surprised to see that they lost the game and that they conceded. Again, in their game week in game week 27 against Palace that they have coming up, I would expect there to be better defensive returns for the Newcastle assets. Selhurst Park has seen the fewest goals of any Premier League ground so far this season, and so therefore I don't necessarily see them conceding a lot of goals as they did this week, but I do still think that they offer good value for money. In terms of their attacking assets though, they were still lacking that clinical finish. The likes of Joe Linton and St Maximin getting into good positions, just not having that final touch to kind of score the goals and see off the game. So they're definitely less on the radar than the Newcastle defensive assets are ahead of this nice run of fixtures that they have coming up. Alright then, so let's take a look at the member stats for this game. You'll find these at the bottom of each of the scout notes for each of the games over the course of game week 26 and of course in any other game week that you want to look at. And they give us an insight into what the members area can be used for to run the analysis of players across the course of the game. So this time around, although Saka was officially playing right back on the Arsenal team sheet, of the starters, it was only Aubameyang and Pepe that were in more advanced positions than him. So from an FPL point of view, that's really nice for us as potential Saka owners after, of course, the blanking game week 28, because he is getting into the right positions. Aubameyang was playing out left, but still managed more shots in the box than any other player at the Emirates. And Pepe and Ozil finished joint up for key passes in the game with 4 each. Pepe also producing 3 big chances for his teammates, which was more than any other player on the pitch. Alright, so let's move on then to a team that we didn't expect to see in game week 28, but now we are. With their exit from the League Cup, obviously Leicester no longer have a blank, or the expected blank that we thought that they would have in game week 28, so now their options are definitely there again in terms of FPL. This game, Wolves 0, Leicester 0. Not the best game of football I've ever watched, but in terms of bonus points, all to defenders this time round. So Patricio with the 3, Evans with 2 and Soyuncu with 1. Now there were opportunities in this game, particularly for Wolves, for attacking returns. But actually, from a Leicester point of view, they were kind of slim pickings in terms of those attacking returns, but the defence was really solid for the first time in a while from them. So that opens up another discussion about what we do with our Leicester assets moving forwards. Now, the fact that this game ended 0-0 is really fascinating, given that between these two sides, they had only had 1 clean sheet in their last 10 game weeks, or in the last 10 game weeks. So it was a bit of an unexpected result to see from 1 clean sheet between the two of them to double clean sheet for both of them this week. Now, interesting team news from Wolves this time around, with Traore and Moutinho both being benched, but both coming on to create some really good opportunities. Lovely free kick from Moutinho late on, which could easily have being converted and given him an assist. And Traore, well, he just looked immediately threatening as soon as he came on. So the worries about his dislocated shoulder and the potential injury that he picked up in game week 25 seem to have been kind of removed now, and therefore in terms of FPL assets moving forward, he looks like a fantastic option. What this game lacked in goals, it did make up for in talking points, however. Had a VAR goal ruled out and a red card for Chowdhury. In this game, it was really, as I said earlier, really all about the defences. The two defences were on top for large chunks of the game, with Soyuncu making some ridiculously good blocks, particularly in the closing stages of the match from both Traore and Jimenez late on. So there could have been, and there potentially should have been goals, particularly for Wolves in this game. Jimenez had a really frustrating night actually, where there was plenty of good opportunities for him. He just didn't have that final finish to kind of see the game away for Wolves. While Vardy barely had any involvement in the game, barely touched the ball, seemed really disconnected from the rest of the Leicester players, really missing. I feel like Vardy's game is really missing Ndidi. While Ndidi's not there, there isn't that link-up play between the defence and the midfield, and that's meaning that Vardy is often isolated up top on his own, kind of doing what we saw from Kane earlier on in the season, dropping back a bit deeper to try to get involved in play. But as we'll see a bit later on when we look at the members area stats, very few touches on the ball from Vardy, even fewer in the final third, even fewer again, of course, in that penalty area where you would expect a player like Vardy to be getting a large percentage of his touches. Another player that really stood up and was counted for Wolves this week was Bolly. Obviously, fantastic clean sheet on his return from injury. And he stands out as a nice option for Wolves moving forward because of his price tag, but also because actually he is always the player that they seem to look for when they have corners and set pieces. So he is definitely going to get opportunities to get attacking returns as well as the defensive ones. So let's take a look at the member stats for this one then. 11 of the 24 attempts in this game came from free kicks and corners. Real lack of opportunities made, particularly from Leicester, from open play this time round. No team has recorded more attempts from set plays than Wolves over the course of this calendar year so far, so in 2020. And from corners, as I mentioned earlier, they are constantly looking for Bolly, and so he looks like he might be a really nice option if they continue to create as many set pieces as they have been. Jimenez had 5 attempts, 2 big chances and 9 penalty area touches in this game, in contrast to Vardy with 0 attempts and only the 1 penalty area box from him. Vardy's overall touch count, as I mentioned earlier, is really low for this game, so he only had 20 touches across the whole the whole match, and that was surpassed by Al Brighton, who came on in the 68th minute as a sub, so less touches than a player that played for 28 or 22 minutes of the game. And in terms of his abilities to score any goals or create any opportunities, they were fundamentally lacking by the lack of touches that he had in and around that penalty area, which is where we expect Vardy to be getting the majority of his touches, and that's why we've got used to him being a lot. So with another blank, still with only the 1 assist and 1 penalty missed to his name this calendar year, he is making it really difficult, even with the lovely run of fixtures that Leicester have coming up, and even without blanking in game week 28 in a nice game against Norwich. It's making it really difficult for FPL managers to keep hold of Vardy, given the lack of form that we're seeing for him and the lack of interaction with the rest of the team in terms of the number of touches and the number of passes he's receiving. Schmeichel and Patricio both making 3 saves in this game, but it's just Patricio that gets the bonus points, and that's due to the baseline bonus points of the baseline system. Schmeichel didn't make as many recoveries, he didn't make as many clearances as Patricio did, and Schmeichel had a first half error, which obviously takes away from his baseline score, and therefore that is why Patricio gets the bonus points when Schmeichel didn't, even though they both made the same number of saves and they both kept clean sheets this week. Okay, final game from me then this week, Norwich 0 and Liverpool 1. Would be amiss not to talk about the champions in waiting this week, particularly given the Mane and Salah debacle, which rolls on and on and on. This time round a goal from Mane, assist again from Henderson, and the bonus points 3 for Robertson, 2 for Gomez, 1 for Trent and 1 for Henderson. So this Mane and Salah saga has been rolling on. Obviously, Mane back from injury this time out, came on, scored the winning goal for Liverpool. Over 1.6 million managers have sold Mane since his injury back in double game week 24. Unsurprising actually, given it was a hamstring injury and we weren't sure when we were going to necessarily expect him back. Kind of Liverpool had touted this Norwich game as an opportunity where he might be available, but with the Atletico game on Tuesday evening, we weren't really sure that we would necessarily see Mane play the whole game, but hoped that he might get some minutes in this game, which he did, and obviously used those minutes really well in terms of FPL. So if you did hold Mane, great idea when it comes to this game week. If you've sold him already, or if you're looking to bring him back in, then obviously now would probably be a nice opportunity, given that we saw no signs of any problems with his hamstring. But let's see what happens, of course, in that Atletico Madrid Champions League game, before we make any fundamental decisions about our transfer strategies. Salah, on the other hand, you know, we talked about how Mane scored that goal. Salah, on the other hand, was owned by 45% of the game, so 45.4 to be exact, percent of the game. Captained by 2 million managers. He was by far and away the most captained in this game week. No returns. Actually a bit unlucky though. There were plenty of opportunities where he could have and should have capitalised and didn't. So it rolls on, and it seems to always be the case that, you know, we see attacking returns from either Mane or Salah in each game. It's very rare that we necessarily get them from both across the same game week. But it's something that we just need to keep in mind when it comes to making a decision about whether we buy them both, whether we just own one of them, and if we're just going to own one of them, which one of them we own. All this talk about Salah and Mane, of course, it's been Henderson that has been the standout performer for Liverpool of late. He had 3 attacking returns in the first 23 matches of the season, but since that we now have 5 since the start of game week 24, which is more than any other of his Liverpool teammates. Obviously significantly cheaper, but it does seem, given that the stats weren't there for the first 23 game weeks, I'm not necessarily sure that I would use one of my 3 Liverpool spots up on him, although, you know, the form is absolutely there for sure. It did feel like Storm Dennis impacted this game though. Liverpool seem to have far less shots on sight than they normally do. Liverpool, over the course of the season, we've kind of got used to them just taking shots from wherever they are, any good opportunities that arise. And it did seem as though that didn't happen as much in this game. Those kind of shots from outside the box were a little bit more kind of tampered in terms of, you know, that the wind was just huge in that game, and it was a massive contributing factor, I think, to why Liverpool didn't score more goals than they potentially should have or could have across game week 26. They did dominate possession. but they did struggle to test crawl, and again I think partly that was down to the weather. Salah and Firmino were both very busy in terms of the penalty area, but they just lacked that quality and accuracy that we would have expected from Salah and Firmino given the form that they've been in over the last few game weeks. And there was a really late opportunity from Firmino, which came from a Trent cross, which just had a little bit too much pace on it for Firmino to get to, but it was a good opportunity for him to continue that away record that we've, as FPL managers, enjoyed so much so far this season. But this was the game week to own the double Liverpool defence, or even the triple Liverpool defence. The Liverpool defenders made so many accurate passes that actually they just earned all the bonus points, with the exception of Henderson, who obviously appeared in there because of the assist that he got, and he obviously gets the clean sheet point for a midfielder. But otherwise, the bonus points in this game going to Robertson, Gomez and Trent, simply because of the number of passes that the three of them were creating over the course of this game week, and obviously add that to the clean sheet that they have. Some really nice returns for them, 9 for Robbo, 8 for Gomez and 7 for Trent, which, you know, if you've got the double or the Liverpool treble up at the back, that's a great afternoon's work for you guys. All right then, so the members area stats. Now this one is absolutely crammed full of tables and really interesting, some really interesting analysis to be done from those. So head over to the website, have a look through the scout notes from this match, so you can see the tables in full. But in terms of what I've pulled out then, Salah was top for the game for shots in the box. Robertson was Liverpool's key creative outlet, registering more key passes than any other player at the game at Carrow Road this weekend. And Keita and Firmino topping the expected goal involvement charts, both of them missing clear opportunities, which in weeks gone by and over the past few weeks we would have definitely seen them take advantage of those. Okay, that's it from me in terms of Game Week 26, but still lots of action to come before Game Week 27's deadline. So still 2 Premier League matches since I filmed this to happen in Game Week 26, and then the Champions League and the Europa League kicking back off with Liverpool and Spurs in the Champions League, Manchester United, Wolves and Arsenal in the Europa League this week. So let's keep an eye on those ahead of that deadline for 27, particularly when we're thinking about what we do with our assets that are blanking in Game Week 28. Now's a really good opportunity to use our free transfers for Game Week 27 and Game Week 28 to help us deal with that blank for Manchester City, Arsenal, Sheffield United and Aston Villa. Leave us a like before you go, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you after Game Week 27 for another Sam Says. Thanks guys.